This is the most powerful 15-inch gaming laptop I've ever tested. It's the ROG Strix Scar 15 from ASUS, just in case you couldn't tell from all that RGB. My Scar 15 has Intel's Core i9-12900H CPU, Nvidia's RTX 3080 Ti graphics, 32 gigs of DDR5 memory, and a 15.6-inch 1080p 300Hz screen. But you can check lower spec models as well as current prices with the links below the video. The exterior design of the Scar 15 hasn't really changed since last year's model. We've still got a black metal lid and smooth plastic interior, with the top right area being translucent so you can kind of see through it. The back plastic corner piece clips in and can be removed and swapped between 3 different included finishes. But there's also a 3D printing template so you can customize your own with different colors and designs. Overall build quality feels good. There's only a little flex to the keyboard area when pushing down hard. It's perfectly sturdy during normal use. There's some lid flex despite the metal finish, but the hinges feel sturdy and it doesn't wobble when typing, so no issues there. The laptop alone weighs under 2.4 kilos or 5.2 pounds, and goes up another kilo or 2.2 pounds with the fairly chunky 280 watt power brick and cables for charging. It's not a thin laptop, but it's not massive either, which will be more impressive when you see the performance numbers shortly. Like last year, the Scar 15 has a MUX Switch, so we've got the option of disabling Optimus for better performance in games, but at the expense of battery life. The 15.6-inch screen has both 1440p and 1080p high refresh options. Adaptive Sync is available with Optimus on, but neither panel has G-Sync support, so expect tearing with Optimus off. My 1080p 300Hz panel had okay color gamut for a gaming laptop, alright contrast, and the screen was able to get to 358 nits at full brightness. Bright enough, and more than the 300 that I want to see as a minimum. The ASUS Armoury Crate software, the control panel for the laptop, lets us enable or disable panel overdrive. With overdrive disabled, we're looking at a 7.2 millisecond average gray-to-gray response time, but with overdrive on, which is the default, this lowers to a faster 3.57 milliseconds. But there's some overshoot and undershoot. It's a great result compared to other gaming laptops I've tested. One of the fastest measured, and only slightly behind the 3.33 milliseconds needed for all transitions to occur within the 300Hz refresh window. Screen response time is a factor that contributes to total system latency. This is the total amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fires on the screen in CSGO, and the Scar 15 was the second fastest machine I've tested in this regard. So great for esports games. Backlight bleed wasn't great, however at the same time I never actually noticed this during regular use, but this will vary between panels. Despite ASUS bringing the camera back to many of their laptops this year, the Scar 15 didn't make the cut. Although there's no camera, it does still have microphones, and this is what they sound like. This year's Scar has a standard chiclet keyboard. It's not mechanical like last year's version. It's got per key RGB backlighting, but the function key labels like F1, F2, and so on don't get lit up, which I found annoying when I needed them in a darker room. Although I preferred last year's clicky mechanical keyboard, I still had no problems typing on this one. It felt fine. There are 3 levels of key brightness, which can be adjusted with the F2 and F3 shortcuts. And this adjusts the lighting on the entire laptop, not just the keyboard. The Aura key right next to the brightness adjustments can be used to cycle through the different lighting effects. But you've also got far more customization available through the Aura Creator software. There's no shortage of RGB lighting with the Scar. In addition to the keyboard lighting, we've also got the light bar on the front that wraps around about a third on the left and right sides towards the front. There's a little bar below one half of the screen which gives a subtle underglow effect, as well as the ROG logo on the lid. We've got some extra keys above the keyboard on the left for volume adjustment, performance mode changes, and a shortcut to open the Armoury Crate software, while the right side of the keyboard has media keys and print screen. There's no numpad in the keyboard, but if you rest your finger on the top right of the touchpad for a second, it turns into one. However, you can't use it as a regular touchpad while it's in this mode. The touchpad felt nice, but I didn't like using it. Small movements just felt difficult, like the acceleration was slower or something. The left side has an air exhaust vent, two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, and a 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right has an air exhaust too, but there aren't any ports on this side, so no cables in the way of your mouse hand. Sorry, lefties. There's only the keystone on this side, which is a little red plastic magnetic key with an NFC chip inside. You can configure the laptop to lock when you remove it, or when you connect it to the laptop, load saved RGB and performance settings. And you can even use it to unlock an encrypted drive, so you can store, stuff. Most of the ports are on the back. From left to right between two more air exhausts, we've got a Thunderbolt 4 Type-C port with USB 4 support, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port, HDMI 2.1, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet facing the preferred way so you don't have to lift the machine to unplug, and the power input on the right. The Type-C port on the back that's next to the HDMI port can be used to charge the laptop with up to 100 watts, but the Thunderbolt 4 port does not offer Type-C charging. Both Type-C ports also offer DisplayPort output. However, if you have Optimus enabled, the Thunderbolt 4 port connects to the integrated graphics. But if you disable Optimus, it connects directly to the NVIDIA graphics, just like the other Type-C port. The HDMI 2.1 output also connects directly to the NVIDIA graphics, and although we confirmed that it could run an external screen at 4K 120Hz, it did this at 8-bit. The front has an extremely subtle extrusion in the middle, and I found it very easy to open the lid, but the screen doesn't go back as far as most other laptops. I measured the angle at around 120 degrees. I've never actually bothered measuring any others, so can't compare, but it just didn't feel as far. To get inside, you've got to take out 11 Phillips head screws, and the 4 down the front are shorter than the rest. I found the panel easy to pry off using the tools linked below the video, but like last year's SCAR 15, you've got to be careful removing the bottom panel as these two ribbon cables for the light bar connect to the motherboard. You've got to remove the panel without pulling it too far away until you unclip both cables. Those cables are there for the all-important RGB light bar that runs along the front. Unlike other brands like MSI and Lenovo, ASUS just apparently haven't put the light bar into the laptop chassis itself yet. I've personally forgotten about these cables and gone to take off the bottom panel of a SCAR 15 and just broken the tabs straight off the motherboard, which results in the front light bar not working. So I really hope that they change this design in future, because I know that I'm not alone in making this mistake. There are holes for airflow directly above the intake fans, as well as in other areas. Inside we've got the battery down the front, 2 memory slots in the middle, and 2 M.2 storage slots to the left of that. And as is usually the case with ASUS laptops, the Wi-Fi 6E card is hiding out underneath the installed SSD. Wi-Fi performance was good, a middle-of-the-pack result compared to other Intel-based options. The upgradeability score is the same as a number of other laptops, as we can upgrade both RAM sticks, 2 M.2 storage slots, and Wi-Fi. I took off half a point from ease of access because of the ribbon cables. The speakers are underneath on the left and right sides towards the front, and I thought they sounded excellent. Well above average for a gaming laptop, and still relatively clear at higher volumes with nice bass presence. And I think this is the first gaming laptop we've tested this year that didn't fail the Latencymon test with Windows 11. Speaking of sounds, by default it plays this one on boot. Fortunately, it's possible to disable it in the Armoury Crate software or BIOS. The SCAR 15 is powered by a 4-cell 90-watt-hour battery, and ASUS have some nice options to help make the battery last longer. The first is Panel Power Saver, which is enabled by default. This will lower the screen's refresh rate down to 60 Hz and turn off the overdrive mode when you unplug the charger, and automatically reverse it when you plug back in. And this is why the screen briefly flashes black when it changes. If Optimus is enabled, you've also got the option of enabling Eco Mode. This basically disables the NVIDIA graphics and only uses the integrated graphics to further increase battery life. And you can also set it to automatically apply when you unplug the charger. Interestingly, I actually got slightly lower battery life with the iGPU only, and I ran this test twice to confirm the result. It wasn't much of a difference, as I just leave the laptop there playing a video, but depending on what apps you've got running, you might find the NVIDIA graphics get called more with just regular Optimus Optimus mode, so the iGPU only mode could make a bigger difference there. As is generally the case with Intel gaming laptops, the battery life just can't compete with the AMD Ryzen options that dominate the top of the graph. Even last year's AMD-based SCAR 15 with the same size battery was lasting for 68% longer in the video playback test, or 36% longer in the gaming test. Still though, compared to other Intel machines, this year's SCAR was above average. Let's check out thermals next. There are shared heat pipes between the CPU and GPU, and the CPU has Thermal Grizzly liquid metal applied. The Armory Crate software lets us change between different performance modes. From lowest to highest, we've got silent, performance, turbo, and manual mode. Manual is the only one that gives us customization. We can change the fan curve for the CPU and GPU, adjust power limits, and optionally lower the thermal throttle limit for the GPU. Both turbo and manual modes apply the same overclock to the GPU, though manual mode gives us the option to customize it. The temperatures were warmer than most others when just sitting there idle, but that doesn't matter much unless it feels warm to the touch. We'll check that soon. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst case. The CPU, shown in the blue bars, was thermal throttling at 95 degrees Celsius, so very close to this in turbo mode, while manual mode triggered this. Even the cooling pad I test with, linked below the video, wasn't able to remove CPU thermal throttling. The GPU in the green bars got cooler in manual mode compared to turbo though. These are the clock speeds for the same tests just shown. Although the GPU gets cooler in manual mode, the clock speed wasn't much different, only 40 MHz or so. The CPU clock speeds in blue get better with the cooling pad because this helps reduce the amount of thermal throttling taking place. It's just not enough to fully remove it, but we can get a performance gain. With both the CPU and GPU active, silent mode appears to limit the CPU to a 30 watt TDP, then 35 watts in performance mode, 55 watts in turbo mode, then manual mode just keeps going even higher until thermals become the bottleneck, as PL1 actually gets set to 135 watts here. The high CPU power limit results in the GPU lowering from 125 watts in turbo mode to 115 watts in manual mode. However, this is only when both CPU and GPU are being pushed to the max at the same time, something that's actually not very common in practice. With an actual game running, I found the GPU in manual mode was running around 135 watts, as the CPU wasn't anywhere near the 70 watts we're seeing in the stress test. This is why the actual frame rates in a game were higher in manual mode compared to turbo mode. Granted, the difference was only small. In a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, after a few minutes, manual mode settled in at 80 watts, while turbo actually ran higher at 95 watts. And that's why turbo mode scored better. If it weren't for the fact that manual mode was producing higher FPS in games, as we just saw, based on the stress test data earlier and these Cinebench scores, I'd be asking why manual mode even exists if it can't compete with turbo mode. It's doing very well compared to other laptops due to the high CPU power limit, though it's still being beaten by the Legion 5i Pro with a slightly lower i7 chip. The difference in multi-core score between i7s and i9s depends entirely on power and thermal limits. However, the i9 should always have a higher single-core boost, and that's why the SCAR was able to get one of the best scores there. The results drop back when we unplug the charger and run purely off battery power. It's still one of the higher results out of the same selection of laptops due to the higher core and thread count. However, other 8-core Ryzen options were now able to beat it. The keyboard was in the low to mid 30 degrees Celsius range at idle, so slightly warmer compared to most others. And remember, the CPU and GPU were idling warmer than most others too. It didn't get too much warmer with the stress tests running, at least in silent mode. Actually, it wasn't much different in performance mode either. The hottest spots barely felt warm. Turbo mode was similar, if not cooler, though the fans get louder to compensate for the higher power limits and better performance. Manual mode was even cooler despite the high levels of performance on offer. Hardly even warm to the touch and not hot at all. But let's have a listen to the fans. The fans could be silent at idle, but from time to time they would kick in, which is why I've shown two different levels. The fans get progressively louder in the different modes, while manual mode was the loudest as expected because I set the fans to full speed, but you can customize them. Now let's find out how this year's SCAR 15 actually performs in games and compares against other laptops. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested the same on all laptops, and I've got the SCAR 15 shown by the red highlight. It's performing extremely well here, coming in as the second fastest result in this game out of all laptops that we've ever tested. It's only a couple of FPS behind the thicker MSI GE76, an impressive result. Although my SCAR 15 came with a 1080p screen, I don't think this allows us to get the most from the RTX 3080 Ti graphics. So I've also connected an external monitor to test 1440p. Again, it's sitting in second place, only being beaten slightly by that larger GE76. Control is a GPU heavy game, and the SCAR 15 was only beaten by those larger 17-inch desktop replacement style machines with higher GPU power limits. Compared to last year's maxed out Ryzen-based SCAR 15 with RTX 3080 graphics, this year's maxed out model is offering a 21% higher average frame rate here. The SCAR 15 was still in third place in this game at the higher 1440p resolution, so the best result recorded from any 15-inch gaming laptop so far, as the two machines above it and one below are all 17-inch laptops, followed closely by a 13-inch tablet with eGPU. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested with the game's benchmark. However, I don't believe some of the older data is accurate anymore after a game update. I doubt last year's Zephyrus S17 with lower wattage GPU would be ahead today, but unfortunately I don't have it for retesting. Anyway, the SCAR 15 is still doing well, but those thicker 17-inch machines were now further ahead here. This trend continues at 1440p too. The SCAR 15 is still the best 15-inch gaming laptop result though, but it makes me wonder if the larger SCAR 17 could get even higher. Let me know if you want me to cover that one as well, and make sure you're subscribed for future reviews. Here are the 3D Mark results for those that find them useful. Now for some content creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark, and this year's SCAR 15 was one of the better results, though the thinner MacBook Pro 16 was just ahead. The 16-inch Legion 5i Pro with lower tier CPU and GPU was also a little ahead. It's a different story in Adobe Photoshop. The SCAR 15 is now the highest score we've ever recorded in this test, an impressive result, even ahead of the larger GE76 just below it. It's only a small difference, but the SCAR 15 is definitely more portable in comparison. The SCAR wasn't quite able to pull off a win in DaVinci Resolve, but it's extremely close and still a great result. Technically, the GPU power limit isn't as high as the Blade 17 a couple of spots behind it, but the SCAR still came out on top. I've also tested SpecViewPerf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. Intel 12th Gen supports fast PCIe Gen 4 storage, and the 2TB SSD was able to provide excellent read and write speeds. There aren't a whole lot of options to change through the BIOS, just the basic minimal stuff that you'd expect any laptop to have. Others like MSI offer far more customization through their advanced BIOS. Linux support was tested by booting an Ubuntu 21.1 live CD. I tried booting Pop! OS, but it kept failing. Anyway, out of the box, the keyboard, touchpad, speakers, and Ethernet worked, as well as keyboard shortcuts for volume control and RGB brightness. It wasn't possible to use keyboard shortcuts to change screen brightness or performance modes, and changing the touchpad to a numpad didn't work either. Let's discuss pricing and availability next. This will of course change over time, so refer to those links below the video for updates. At the time of recording, I could only find the same CPU, GPU, and RAM configuration, but with the 1440p screen and half the SSD space for about $3,300 US, while the 3060 configuration starts at $1,800. So not exactly razor expensive, but I've seen last gen 3060 laptops for much less. Let's summarize all the good and bad parts of the SCAR 15 to help you decide if it's a gaming laptop worth buying. This is the best performing 15-inch gaming laptop that I've ever tested so far. Whether we're talking raw CPU performance in something like Cinebench, gaming, or content creator workloads, the SCAR 15 was constantly a chart topper. Now, to be fair, I do have the most overkill configuration of it here, so I guess that's not too surprising. But even with lower specs, based on what we've seen with this high-end model, I'd expect the SCAR 15 to hold up pretty well compared to other laptops with similar CPU and GPU hardware. High performance is a result of high power limits, which can result in higher internal temperatures. But personally, I've got no issues running at 95 degrees Celsius and thermal throttling as long as we're still getting pretty much full performance. It probably sounds high to most of you, but I'm just used to it after testing 200 plus gaming laptops. It just is what it is when it comes to mobile machines with this level of hardware. I think the 1080p 300Hz screen only makes sense if you're serious about esports games. And the fast screen response time and low system latency also help with that. But for most people, I think a 1440p screen would be a better choice, especially with high-end graphics hardware like we've got here. I didn't like the touchpad as small movements just felt slow and awkward, but I'm sure most people would be using a mouse anyway. All things considered, there just aren't a whole lot of changes to the Scar 15 this year, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The overall design is mostly the same as last year's 2021 model, and I think when that came out, it was a new design at the time. So look, I get that they probably don't want to put out an entirely new laptop design every single year. They reused what they had. I just really hope that next year they move the light bar off the bottom panel so that it's part of the main laptop chassis so that we don't have to deal with those two ribbon cables. I guess it's not that big of an issue. I mean, how many people are going into their laptops and upgrading it all the time? If you do it once, it's something to be aware of and just be careful of, but yeah, if you forget about it or you don't know about it, it's going to be a problem. It's just another point of failure that doesn't need to exist. Other brands have already solved this problem. It would also be nice if they added a camera like they did to the G15 and G14 this year. But maybe most gamers don't care about that. Let me know in the comments. Honestly, for most people, the RTX 3080 Ti graphics aren't really worth considering. Check out how it compares against the cheaper RTX 3070 Ti over in this video next. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you get subscribed for future gaming laptop reviews like this one. There are a lot more on the way.